Hello, sweet souls. How are you? How are you feeling? How is your heart and how is your soul? I feel this energy moving back and forth. I was around a fire yesterday and there was singing and it's still kind of moving through me. But I'm glad to be here with you today. I wasn't sure what I was going to speak about, but this morning, of course, it all dropped in. Thank you to the ancestors. Thank you to the guidance within and the guidance without. First, I want to say the main message is you are ready for the light. You are ready for this light. You are ready for this next stretch of expansion. And it just feels good to say that. And saying it to you, I'm saying it to me, I'm saying it to all. And I'm going to share more about that message in just a moment. First, I want to say hi. I'm Maggie. I am a storyteller and a ritualist, both with cacao, with the ancestors, with the elements, and I tell stories that bridge dimensions, that bridge my life and my life experience with what I hear from the ancestors, what is offered to me through cacao and through others whom I meet. I am also a teacher, and I teach how to listen to your soul, how to verbalize and vocalize from the soul. Listen to that language of love that is deep within you. Sometimes it's buried, and I hold ceremonies and circles and workshops to surface it. And I have another ceremony series coming up in the beginning of March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And I so enjoyed February's, and I can't wait to do March's. So if you hear the call, you'll see a link to join in the description down below. You can also get on my email list and learn about all my events that I do. Okay, back to the resonance, the messages for this week. First, I want to acknowledge that we are still in the Trecena of Akabal, which is an energy in the Mayan sacred calendar. It is about the dawn, the darkening to the light, the seed, the beginning. And it could be that over these 13 to 20 days, right? Because a Trecena is 13 days, but it will be 20 days until we reach 8 Akabal, which is sort of like a pinnacle of the energy. My invitation is, what are you bringing to light? Because you're ready for it. You're ready for it. And that's what I keep hearing, and that's what I wish to offer to you. And what I'm hearing, sometimes when I look off, it's because I'm hearing, so I'm listening, right? And then I come back to you. What I'm hearing is you are ready for the light. You are ready for the brightening. You are ready for this next stretch of expansion. And the question is, how do you remember that you are ready for this next stretch of expansion? How do you remember that? You remind yourself on a daily basis through everything that you move through. When you do something that is hard, when you allow yourself to move through it and you realize that you did it, you remind yourself that you are ready for the light. And in many ways, you are the light. I had a story of this sort of occur over the last few days. As some of you know, I am recovering from surgery on my ankle. And I remember someone telling me just after the surgery that I was a slow healer. There's a lot in that, right? Imagine the weight in hearing that. And I remember taking it to my new healer here in Texas and them saying, that's nonsense, right? That's just nonsense. over the last few days, I've really pushed my ankle to get back into movement, been very aggressive with it. And there's pain through that process. More pain than I expected at this point. And yet, after I move through it and I sleep, right? Even if it's painful, I sleep through it. I wake up in the morning and I realize, oh, that passed. I got through it. My ankle's no longer swollen. I've retrained it in a tiny way. And now today I can train it again in another way. What I heard through that experience is, you think, or you've trained yourself to think, that some things may take a lot of time, and they do. Some things take decades, right? Coming into your wisdom does take decades. You are not born with a revealing, a light around all the wisdom. Yes, it's there in the soul, in the body, and yet life experience reveals it, right? Trials, tragedies, triumphs reveal the wisdom over time. And yet, with this very particular thing, my ankle and getting back to movement, I heard you think it should take decades, when in fact, if you were called upon to use that ankle tomorrow in a major way, you'd be ready. And that is the message for you. If you were called upon tomorrow to shine your light, you are ready. You are ready. You are ready. You're ready for the light. You're ready to shine the light. And it does not necessarily have to take decades. And so if there's something here within you, something your soul wishes to allow to bring to life, to bring to the light, the invitation is, do that because you're ready. You're so ready. This journey for me, I was at a all day-ish ceremony yesterday, and everyone uses the word healing all the time. We're all on healing journeys, and that can be true. But the soul has taught me to reconfigure that language. The journey for me, the journey for you, is one of remembering your wholeness, is showing you, revealing to you so much about you that was darkened, that is now coming into light. Remember, you're so ready. You are not broken. You are not necessarily even healing, right? Let's change that language. You are remembering how whole you are, how whole you've always been, how whole you always are in every moment, even if you make a mistake, even if you're emotional, even if you're angry, you're whole. The emotion is bringing light to a part of you that wants to come to the surface, that wants to reveal itself. So for this next stretch of expansion that you're moving through, which is absolutely beautiful, I see light coming up over the horizon. I actually see an image of this piece of artwork that I recently got that has this beautiful bit of bright light in the center of it. For this next stretch of expansion, what do you need to release in order to expand? What do you need to allow in order to grow? And what bit of resistance can you allow to roll off your back, to roll off your shoulders, right? Because we're always going to encounter resistance. For me, particularly with the ankle, The resistance is like it becomes tight, it becomes painful, it becomes swollen. That is resistance. And yet I still allow it, and I get back to movement or exercise, whatever it is, the next day. Because the only way to remember how whole this ankle is to move through its experience, to allow it to move in all different ways, right? I was thinking a little bit about, feeling the pain of the ankle as I do more activity. I had one particular night where I didn't sleep because my ankle and my knee, all of it was tender and was aching throughout the night. And I woke up super grumpy, really grumpy, right? And I had to get up early and go out into the world. And I opened my front door and I just like stomped to my car. And I wasn't thinking, wasn't looking, wasn't expecting that there was going to be ice before me. And I just slid across the deck and fell like squarely on my bum. Thank goodness that I had the insight and the flexibility to make sure I fell on my butt and not on a joint, right? And in that moment, there was a pause. Like I had everything in my hand. I could tell I was falling. I threw everything out of my hands, and I just found the best way for me to fall, right? This is me being very vulnerable with you. It feels so silly. And yet, as I was on the ground, all my stuff all over the place, I just heard, this is the pause. This is the pause. Take a moment to pause, right? No stomping, like pause. If you want to feel, feel. If you want to laugh, laugh. I think I ended up laughing, being like, of course. Of course. Of course, the invitation is to take a moment, to like take a beat, right? To remember that my energy, my vibration, my frequency cultivates the resonance around me. And, that grumpiness is allowed and also sometimes like shuts me off from the resonance. And it was funny too, because on the same day that this happened to me, I actually saw an influencer on social media say that they fell, and like they fell squarely, right? And it felt to them like a leveler, like a reminder that when things seem too good, they are, and that they should get ready for things to get bad again. And I saw that, and my whole body was like, I can't vibe with that explanation, right? I think this was a travel influencer or fashion influencer. I don't remember. And I had to respond and say, listen, of course, suffering is a wave. We have highs and we have lows, right? And also the pause, the bump is a reminder, is an invitation, is a calling back to self. The pause is like a reminder to you to make sure you remember this moment. And for me, to make sure I remember how good it is otherwise and how good it's going to get. When you cultivate your inner world, when you take the pause, when you cultivate that inner fire, you can pause and remember how good it really is. How all is well, all is always well. That's what the soul says to me. That's what I guide people through. Listen, I have sat in ceremony and workshops in person and online with dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of people. And when I ask their sweet soul to say, is all well? The answer is yes. Is all always well? The answer is always yes. It is, right? When people get down to that language of love, they hear how okay they really are. And so when I woke up this morning to record this for you, I was like, what am I going to talk about? What's in the resonance? There's been so many ups and downs. And the pause was an invitation to remember something that I say often around a ceremonial fire, around a circle. And I was at a fire for much of yesterday. It was a big wellness day, but there were some people tending to the fire, to a sacred fire. And if there's a fire, I'm going to be there. To be able to commune with the fire, a big one, is a very special experience, right? Wherever it is, whether you have a Mayan spiritual leader tending to the fire or someone else from another lineage, it's absolutely beautiful. So I was at the fire yesterday and I heard what I say to people in ceremony because it came to me during a separate fire several years ago. And that message is, I'm going to share it with you. And if you get into ceremony or circle with me, or if you come in March to the 3 days of cacao rituals, pretend you're hearing it again for the first time. I'm sure it will be a different context, but the message is this: love and abundance and clarity and good health and opportunity and whatever anyone wants around this circle, around this fire, will meet you to the capacity, to the willingness, to the ability, to the depth that you are able to meet yourself. Period. The universe or love or God or creation, others, other individuals, other groups of people, they will only meet you to the depth that you are able to meet yourself. Clarity meets you to the depth that you are able to meet yourself. Love meets you to that depth too. So that means that everything you desire or wish for is on the other side of you being your most vulnerable self and welcoming that self in with grace, with forgiveness, with compassion and love, seeing the light through the dark. So here's some vulnerability for you. I am always meeting a new version of myself all the time because I am excavating and bringing curiosity to my darkness, my wounds. And I want to share this very sort of high level practice that you can do on your own right now. I'm going to use myself as an example because that's what I do. That's what I do in my work. That's what I do in ceremony. I am the example that I use. And I try not to speak about others because it's not for me to tell you what, for example, your purpose is. It's for me to know what my purpose is in the moments that I know it, in the moments that I allow it. So I'm going to invite you to talk to your inner child for just a moment. Talk to them for just a moment. And the questions I want you to ask and listen perhaps, and then go do this on your own a little bit later. Marinate in it. The soul likes to say, marinate in it like a salad. What did your parents teach you individually? What impression did they leave with you? And I want you to look at the dark of that and the light of that. Okay? Let's look at the dark and the light as I receive it in this moment regarding my parents, who are both past, but who are right here. My mother on my left side, my father on my right side. I am still in relationship with them, even though they are no longer here in the 3D. I feel them in other dimensions. My father, for example, taught me to never be taken advantage of and to be as detached as possible from others and from an outcome. So in prettier world, like in prettier words, let's say, my father, unconsciously, I think, taught me self-protection and emotional resilience. This is the grace and the kindness, right, that I'm offering in this moment. But as a child, I took it as the world was not safe for me to be authentic, not safe for me to fully express. And using that with you right now, like I had this realization this morning. I used these words this morning. I've gotten very curious about those wounds that I received from my father, with my father, in relationship with my father, many, many times. But I've never sort of summed it up that simply. How would you sum it up with your father? My mother taught me to unconsciously, right? This was not her intention, taught me to feel shame for my body and to hide my emotions, to reserve the expression of my emotions just for her, because the world couldn't, shouldn't receive my emotional expression. As a child, I took that as my body, my whole self, was not acceptable, no matter the size, no matter the shape. And I certainly couldn't fully express in the world. I was always looking for ways to express in tiny ways, like tiny things. I remember, like, I'm getting a flash of me auditioning for plays when I was a kid because I wanted to be on a stage and act, right? Which is a way to express. And eventually I realized I was gifted. One of my gifts was writing and eventually storytelling or speaking. So when you think about the dark and the light of what you received from your parents, you can then understand your purpose. And I'm not talking about your work. I'm talking about your purpose. Your work may be something else. What you get paid for may be something else. But it reflected back to me my purpose. My purpose is the opposite in many ways of what I learned. So when I say pain is a portal and the wound is a gift, and I say it often when I'm teaching, I mean it. But this is just a simple practice to be able to think of it in a very direct, succinct way. I now teach people that it's safe to be all of you. I teach you how to remember how whole you are. I teach you how to fully express and how to be your most authentic self. I do this to help others and myself feel at home in the world. Feel at home in yourself, in your sweet soul. And I think that's why I developed the practice of vocalizing from the soul, vocalizing from the language of love that's within you. The invitation is to go within, to tend to the inner fire, to tend to that inner light, to create safety, to cultivate love within, so you can do it on the outside and naturally emit your innate magnetism and call in all that's meant for you. Period. Like, that's what I do. Today, in this moment, right? Who knows how that shifts in 3 months? But that's how my wounds and my pain have translated into my gifts and my purpose, my ever unfolding purpose, because it changes. It changes as I get to know more parts of myself, my darkness. My light emits in different ways as I become more familiar with my darkness. So I leave all that on the altar between us for you to marinate in yourself and pull at what resonates with you, what feels good for you. And if you hear the call to be in ceremony with me, to work with cacao and the fire and all the other elements, to remember who you are, to enlight your innate magnetism so you can call in all the things that are meant for you, then join us. Join me in March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. There's a link in the description. And thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I promise I will be back again very, very soon.